I am a very old man now. My back is bent like a tired tree. My hands shake when I try to hold a cup, and the nights feel long and empty. But when the rain falls softly on the roof, it sounds exactly like the rain 50 years ago, and my heart goes back to the time when I was 35 years old, strong in my arms but weak with fear inside. My name was Elias, and I had the most beautiful job in our small valley town. Every evening, when the sky turned dark purple, I walked through the quiet streets with my long wooden pole and my can of oil, and one by one I lit the 23 old oil lamps that stood along the main road and down the little lanes to the river. When people saw the soft yellow light appear, mothers called their children home for supper, old people felt safe to walk to their doors, and young lovers knew it was time to say goodnight. I loved those lamps more than anything. Each one was different. One lamp made a gentle hissing sound when the wind came from the mountain. Another lamp burned extra bright when a new baby was coming into the world. And I talked to them the way farmers talk to their horses because they were my friends. At home, in our little wooden house with only 3 small rooms, my dear wife Ruth waited for me every night with a warm smile. We had been married 9 happy years, and every year I loved her more. We had 2 sweet children. Samuel was 7 years old, and already strong enough to help me carry the heavy oil can on Saturdays, and little Miriam was only 4. She always stood on the doorstep in her red coat and waved until I disappeared around the corner. We were poor. We ate simple bread and vegetable soup. We burned wood we collected ourselves. But we had love, and on Sundays we walked together to the little stone church at the end of the lane to thank God for our small happy life. Then came the worst winter anyone could remember, the winter of the long, terrible cough that stole the air from people's lungs. It started with Miriam. She woke up one night with a strange barking sound that frightened us. Ruth gave her warm milk with honey, but the cough only grew worse and worse day after day. Soon Samuel began to cough too, then Ruth herself, and in less than 1 week all 3 of them lay in our 2 narrow beds burning with high fever, their lips turning gray, fighting for every tiny breath. I ran through the deep snow to fetch Dr. Havel, the only doctor in our valley. He came quickly with his black bag, listened to their chests with his cold metal tube, and his face became very still and sad. He said, "This is diphtheria, a very dangerous sickness that can close the throat. There is good medicine called serum that can save them, but it is kept in the big city 2 days away by fast horse, and right now the mountain road is closed with snow higher than a man. Even if I ride night and day, it will take 4 days to go and 4 days to come back, and this serum costs more money than most families in our town see in a whole year. 4 days was far too long. My children were already so weak they could hardly open their eyes. That night, I sat by their beds holding Ruth's hot hand, while Miriam made small, frightened sounds, and Samuel tried to be brave, even though every cough hurt him. Ruth looked at me with shining fever eyes and whispered with almost no voice left, "Elias, do anything you must. Just save them. Promise me." I knew only one person in the whole valley who had that much money locked away, Mr. Victor Reinhardt, the rich mine owner who lived alone in the huge stone house on the hill above the town. 20 years earlier, silver had been found deep under our mountain, and Mr. Reinhardt became richer and richer while the miners stayed poor and coughed black dust from their lungs. People said he kept a big iron safe in his study, full of gold coins and thick bundles of paper money, and that he never helped anyone, never gave even one coin to the church, or to a sick neighbor, or to a child who needed shoes. I had never stolen anything in my whole life, not even one small apple from a tree. I was the honest lamplighter who brought light to the town every night. But when I looked at Miriam's tiny hand clutching the blanket and heard Samuel struggling for air, I knew I would do anything at all, to keep my family alive. The next evening, the snow finally stopped falling, and a thin, cold moon came out like a silver coin in the black sky. I kissed Ruth's burning forehead, told her I was going to borrow a horse from our neighbor Marek, and walked out into the freezing night with my small axe for cutting firewood and a dark scarf over my face. I did not go to Marek's house. Instead, I walked quietly around the edge of the town, staying in the black shadows of the tall pine trees so no one would see me. My boots made no sound in the new soft snow. At last I reached the big lonely house on the hill, 3 tall floors of cold gray stone, iron gates, and yellow windows glowing like angry eyes. I hid behind the high garden wall and waited until every dot glued. For every window went dark except one small lamp over the kitchen door. I waited one more long cold hour until my feet felt like ice and my fingers could hardly move. Then I climbed the wall, the deep snow helped me, no one heard a thing, and I crossed the garden like a ghost until I reached the servants' side door. It was locked, but the wood was old. 3 quiet blows with my axe and the lock broke. Slipped inside. The kitchen smelled of warm bread and roasted meat. My stomach hurt because I had not eaten since yesterday morning, but I kept moving through the dark hallways and up the wide wooden stairs, past big paintings of serious men who seemed to watch me with angry eyes. My heart beat so loud I was sure the whole house would wake up. At last I found the study, a heavy oak door, locked of course. I used my axe again, very carefully this time, and the wood broke with a soft sound that frightened me. Inside, the moon shone through the tall window and showed me the big black iron safe standing against the far wall, taller than me, with a shining brass dial that looked like a single golden eye. I stood in front of it, shaking. I had no idea how to open such a thing. Then I heard slow, heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. Someone was coming. I looked around in panic and slipped behind a long, thick curtain by the window, pressing myself flat against the cold glass and holding my breath. The door opened and Mr. Reinhardt himself walked in wearing a thick red nightrobe and carrying a candle that made shadows dance on the walls. He went straight to the safe, put the candle on the desk, and began to turn the brass dial, left 3 full turns past 0 and stopped at 28, right 2 full turns and stopped at 14, left 1 turn and stopped at 41, right again and stopped at 9. Click, 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 the heavy door opened wide. I saw inside more money than I had ever dreamed of in my whole life. thick bundles of paper notes tied with string, leather bags that made a soft gold sound when he touched them, velvet boxes full of bright jewels that caught the candlelight. My eyes were wide behind the curtain, and I could smell the strong brandy on his breath even from far away. Mustafa. Reinhardt took out only a small leather book, closed the safe door, turned the dial again, picked up his candle, locked the study door from the outside, and walked away down the hall. As soon as his footsteps were gone, I came out from behind the curtain. My whole body shook with cold and fear, but my mind was suddenly clear, like ice. I now knew the secret numbers. I knelt on the cold floor, my fingers almost too cold to move, and turned the dial exactly the same way, left 3 times to 28, right 2 times to 14, left to 41, right to 9. The last click was loud in the quiet room, but the big door opened for me just like it had opened for him. I reached in and took only 3 thick bundles of paper money, enough to buy the medicine many times over and still have some left to give back one day when we were strong again. I did not touch the gold coins or the shining jewels. I told myself that made it a little less bad, that I was only borrowing. I closed the heavy door, turned the dial, blew out the candle so no one would see smoke, and left the same quiet way I came, locking nothing behind me, because the locks were already broken. I buried the axe deep under a pine tree, where no one would ever find it, and hid the 3 bundles of money inside my coat next to my heart, where they felt hot against my skin. The walk home felt like a dream made of snow and moonlight and whispered prayers. When I opened our little door, the sky was already turning pale gray with morning. Ruth was sitting up in bed, giving Miriam tiny sips of water from a cup. Both children were still breathing, though very weakly and with terrible effort. I fell on my knees beside the bed and put the bundles of money into Ruth's trembling hands. Her eyes grew wide. She understood everything without one word, and she began to cry soft, silent tears that ran down her hot cheeks. Old Merrick gave us his fastest horse the moment he saw the children's gray faces and understood this was life or death. Dr. Havel sewed the money inside the lining of his thick coat and rode away before the sun was high, promising to ride day and night. 4 long days later he came back half frozen, his beard white with ice, but smiling the biggest smile I ever saw, carrying a wooden box packed in snow, and inside the snow were many glass bottles of the precious serum that could save my family. We gave the medicine first to little Miriam because she was the weakest and smallest, then to Samuel, then to Ruth, and finally to me, although I said I did not need it. In only a few hours their breathing became easier, the gray color left their lips, the terrible membrane in their throats began to break away, and the awful whooping cough grew quieter and quieter. By the end of 7 days they were sitting up in bed asking for bread and milk and smiling weak little smiles, and the whole town said it was a miracle from God. People brought hot soup and warm blankets and firewood. Everyone was happy and thanked the doctor. But only Ruth and I knew the heavy secret price we had paid in the dark. Spring came early that year. The snow melted into the river, and the river ran high and fast and loud with joy. Miriam's laugh came back, bright as little bells. Samuel helped me carry the oil can again, and was proud that his arms no longer shook. Ruth's cheeks became round and pink once more, but inside my heart something had broken and would not mend. Every evening when I lit the 23 lamps, I felt eyes watching me from the shadows. Every time I passed Mr. Reinhardt's big carriage in the street, I looked down at the ground and walked faster. I told myself no one knew. I had left no footprints that lasted. I had opened the safe with its own secret numbers, Mr. Reinhardt would only think he had forgotten to lock it properly. Yet guilt is heavier than any stone. It sat on my chest every night and made it hard to sleep. Ruth saw the sadness in my eyes. At night she held me close and whispered, "We will pay back every single coin, Elias. We will work until our hands bleed if we must. God sees the heart, and He understands love." So we began to save every extra penny, every small repair job I did for neighbors, every dress Ruth sewed by lamplight after the children were asleep. We put it all in a tin box, hidden under the floorboard beneath our bed, and year after year the tin box grew heavier. 10 quiet years passed. The children grew tall and strong. Samuel became apprenticed to the blacksmith and learned to make beautiful iron things. Miriam learned to read and write better than anyone in the valley school. Ruth's hair began to show silver threads, but her eyes stayed the same gentle gray. I became the head lamplighter when old Joseph retired, and the town gave me a little more money each month. The tin box under the floor was now very heavy with 10 years of honest saving. Then one cold autumn evening, everything changed again. Mr. Victor Reinhardt died suddenly of a heart attack, sitting in his big chair in the study, peaceful, they said. His only son Lucas came from the capital city for the funeral. Lucas was nothing like his father. He was thin and quiet, with kind eyes behind round glasses, and people whispered that he had become a doctor who helped poor children. After the funeral, a notice was nailed to the church door. The entire Reinhardt house, lands, and all the remaining money would be sold, and every coin would be used to build a big children's hospital in the capital city. The town could not believe it. The mean old man was giving everything to sick children. That night I told Ruth the whole story for the first time. Every detail, from the snowy night to the secret numbers on the dial. When I finished, I opened the tin box and put 10 years of saved coins and notes on the table. Ruth cried, but she was smiling through her tears. She said, "The money was never truly ours, and it was never truly his anymore. It belongs to the sick children now. Tomorrow we will take the tin box to Dr. Lucas Reinhardt and tell him the whole truth. And whatever happens, we will accept it because love must be honest in the end." I was afraid. 10 years is a long time, and the law might still call it stealing. But Ruth took my face in her warm hands and said, "We began this with love. We will finish it with love." So the next morning we put on our best clothes that Ruth had sewn herself and walked up the hill to the huge stone house. The gates stood open, workmen were carrying furniture out to wagons, and Dr. Lucas greeted us in the same study where everything had happened 10 years before. The big iron safe was gone. In its place stood simple books about medicine. We told him everything. I spoke most of the words, my voice shaking like leaves in wind. I told about the winter of the long cough, the closed road, the serum that cost too much, how I watched his father open the safe, how I took only 3 bundles and saved my family, how we saved every coin for 10 years to give back. When I finished, I knelt on the floor and placed the heavy tin box on the desk and said, "Here is every coin with interest from our work. Do with me what you must." Dr. Lucas listened without moving, his kind eyes never leaving my face. Then he stood up, came around the desk, and gently helped me stand. He pushed the tin box back to me and said, "My father was not a good man. He became rich while miners died. But in secret, he had already begun sending money to the capital to build this hospital for children. The safe was almost empty when he died. He never knew money was missing. You took nothing that was not already meant for sick children. Perhaps God used you to start what my father was too proud to finish openly." He opened a drawer and showed us beautiful drawings of a big hospital with wide windows and a garden where children could play. "This hospital will open next spring," he said, "and one whole ward will be called the Miriam and Samuel Ward. On the cornerstone will be written, 'Given by the lamplighter and his wife who lit a lamp in the darkest night and kept it burning all their days.'" Ruth and I cried like children. We tried to give him the money anyway, but he would not take it. He said, "Use it to send Samuel to the city to learn more about iron work, or Miriam to the teacher's college. Light still more lamps with it." We walked home that day lighter than we had walked in 10 years. The autumn leaves were gold and red, the river sang over the stones, and the air tasted clean like after rain. The heavy stone on my heart was gone. First, many more years passed. Samuel became the best blacksmith in the whole province. Miriam opened a little school and a library where children could read by lamplight after lessons. Ruth and I grew old together. Her hair turned white as snow, but her eyes stayed the color of river stones after rain. Some evenings, we walked slowly up the hill to watch the new hospital grow stone by stone. The children's hospital opened on a bright spring day full of flowers and music. They carried me there in a cart because my legs were too old to walk far, and when they pulled away the cloth from the cornerstone, I saw the words carved deep and beautiful, "Miriam and Samuel Ward. Given by the lamplighter and his wife who lit a lamp in the darkest night and kept it burning all their days, in memory of Ruth, whose love was the truest light." One night, many years later, I lit the last lamp as always, but my hands shook too much and my legs would not hold me. Samuel gently took the long pole from me and said, "Rest now, Father. You have lit enough lamps for one lifetime." That same winter, Ruth slipped away peacefully in her sleep, holding my hand as she always did. I buried her under the big willow tree by the river, where we used to sit when we were young and the world was new. Now I am very, very old. I sit by my window and watch my grandson Daniel walk the river lane at dusk with the same long pole. He lighted the 20-4. He lights the 23 old oil lamps one by one, and when the last lamp glows, he waves toward my window, the way Miriam used to wave when she was 4. Some nights, when the rain falls soft and steady, I light one small oil lamp on the table beside Ruth's empty chair. I do not need it to see. There is electric light now, but I light it anyway because some promises are not about giving light to the eyes, they are about giving light to the heart. As long as that small flame burns, I know Ruth is sitting beside me, her hand in mine, and all the children we saved, ours and hundreds of others, are breathing free under the same kind sky. The rain keeps falling gently, the lamp keeps burning softly, and I am at peace. The end.